Hello, Greta Thunberg.
Hi.
Greta, this week you called on EU leaders to make the greatest possible effort in the fight against climate change. The EU's goal is to reduce emissions by 55% by 2030. Do you think that 55% is enough?
I mean, it's completely uninteresting whether I think it is enough or what I think about that goal. The only thing that is interesting is it in line with the carbon budget, which gives us the best possible chance of staying below as much heat as possible. So my opinion about this is completely not relevant. The only thing is it in line with the science if we are to be able to be in line with our goals to.
And what's your answer?
What's your answer? Possible chance of.
What's your answer? Is it in line with the scientists?
Well, that's not up for me to say, but if you include all the aspects and take all the aspects into account, and then you can clearly see that it is not in line with us staying in line with the Paris Agreement, nor staying below 1.5 degrees of global average temperature rise. But that's not me saying, that's science saying.
So politicians always need to compromise. Can you work with a compromise? Is this a notion that is acceptable to you?
Of course, I understand that the world is very complex and that we need to compromise within the political systems of today, but you can't really make deals or negotiate with physics, and that's something that we need to understand. And yes, we know that this is not enough, and we know we're not doing what we should be doing, but at least as it's a small step in the right direction. But we have to realize that the time for small steps in the right direction is over, and we now need to. If we are to be able to solve the climate crisis, we need to be able to understand its magnitude, and that we won't be able to do if we just see it as, yeah, these small fixes will do.
So we understand your movement has to be radical to be heard, but your famous sentence, "How dare you," has shocked a lot of people. Do you think today that you struck the right tone?
Well, first of all, it's not my movement. It's everyone's movement who is a part of it. And I think that we've been trying to be nice and polite for so long, talking about this, yes, we need to inspire each other so that we will take action. And we have seen that for decades, and to be quite frank, that has not worked since the emissions have continued to rise and the level of awareness had been close to non-existent. And so we felt that, okay, we've tried everything, and now, yeah, I mean, we need to do something else because this has clearly not worked. And that's when we decided we're not going to care about what people think about us anymore. We're just going to say it like it is, because we are tired of all these compromises and all these pats on the heads, because this is a real crisis and we need to treat it as such. And that's what we have started to do. We have started to treat it as a crisis, at least we in this movement.
What have you achieved? Fridays for Future has been around for 2 years now, but you haven't reached your goal yet. Do you need to change strategy?
Well, I mean, what is our goal? Our goal is to do as much as possible. We can't expect one movement to change the world. I mean, we are just a very small part of a very big change that is coming, that is needed to be able to achieve this shift. So you can't say that Fridays for Future have failed because we haven't achieved our goal. Our goal is to simply to do as much as we can, because we need, in order to do this, we need everyone. And if we think one movement can achieve those changes, then we have not understood the climate crisis. But Fridays for Future had really contributed to a rise in the level of awareness, even though it's very minor and very far from what is needed. It has still brought up the topic and made it more relevant. It feels like people are more concerned about this, which is quite in a way, it's quite sad because it shows that it's not until our own children start to speak up so that we will listen. I mean, people, especially people in the most affected areas, have been speaking up about these issues for so long, and they have been ignored. But now, when we do it, people suddenly start to listen.
Mm-hmm. You say you need everyone. So far, you've mainly reached the young generation. How can you manage to get heard by the older people as well?
Well, I mean, that we will have to see. Of course, young people has a huge potential of affecting the older people, but of course that is not enough, and we need to be able to. I mean, unless the media and the people in power and those with platforms start treating the crisis like a crisis, we won't be able to achieve this collective will of people wanting to change things, and we won't achieve this level of awareness that is needed to be able to, so that enough people will put pressure on policymakers. So, I mean, we children can't be expected to do this alone. We need everyone, and yeah, because it is absurd to believe that children would be the ones that would save the planet, so to speak.
You have received a lot of praise from many politicians for your fight for climate protection. Do you feel that their recognition is always honest?
I mean, of course, you could speculate and have different opinions about that, but of course, since it is public opinion that runs the free world, then if it is popular to support the Fridays for Future movement, if then they pretend to do that, and if they stand next to us and say like, oh, we support what we do, what you do, and if they applaud us, then they gain on that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they are honest.
So let's talk about Angela Merkel. You have met Angela Merkel many times. She once was Germany's Minister of Environment. Does she realize the seriousness of the situation? What do you think?
Well, I don't want to speak out on individuals specifically because I don't think that's a good way to do it. But I can say that generally many people in power lack the insight of the seriousness of this crisis. And but I will not speak up on specific individuals because that's not how you should be, how you should behave or speak about others.
So let's talk about the pandemic. We've seen that one of the results of the pandemic has been a temporary improvement of air quality, but the virus stopped your movement in its tracks, at least for now. How much momentum, how much power has the movement lost due to the coronavirus?
It's funny how everyone talks about that as if the climate movement has lost because of the corona. I mean, when a crisis like this hits, everyone needs to put other things aside and because this is an immediate crisis that we must tackle. So it's not just that the climate movement has lost momentum, which I think is a very strange narrative. But yeah, and some people frame it as if Corona-Pandemic would be a good thing for the environment, which of course couldn't be more wrong. The corona tragedy has of course no positive impact whatsoever on the climate crisis or the environmental crisis. It is nothing but a tragedy.
Okay, but you say people have to step out of their comfort zones and take to the streets, but especially in times of a pandemic, that is a tall order. It requires even more commitment from people, don't you think so?
So it is a tall order?
Yes, to get on the streets. It isn't possible during a pandemic.
Yeah, and that's why we have chosen not to do it. From the very beginning, in the beginning of March, we decided that we were not gonna hold any physical manifestations until it was safe to do so. So yeah, that's what we do. Because in a crisis, you have to take a few steps back and act for the greater good of society and for everyone.
So do you think it is frustrating that governments all over the world are showing that they are capable of immediate action when fighting against the coronavirus, but when it comes to the fight against climate change, things take so much time? It is frustrating.
No, of course not. It's just, that's just logical, that if, when we treat the crisis like a crisis, then they will have reasons to act. But since the climate crisis doesn't exist in the public debate, then they don't have any reasons to act on it, because they don't have any pressure from voters or from civil society to act. And if they don't have any pressure, then they won't act. But yeah, so not surprising.
Several times you criticized the media, but don't you think that the media, they have to report about the crisis? They don't have to fight against the climate crisis.
No, of course not. But they have to report, and our modern democracies are, in order for our democracies to function correctly, we are depending on that people are aware of the issues that concern them, and that very much includes the climate crisis. And so if the media doesn't report about the climate crisis, then people will of course not be aware. And yeah, I think, yeah, that is a failure, that people have not been made aware.
Okay, Greta, I'm interested in how have you personally changed? You are admired a lot in the world, but you also experience a lot of aggression. Is that even of interest to you?
Well, I mean, I don't really care about what people think about me. I just know that I need to do this because this is the only right thing to do. And I definitely hadn't expected it to become this big, and for me to become this public figure. It was just something that came with it. And so I just had to adapt and do the best possible out of that situation, and use the channels that I got and the platform that I got. And of course, with that, as the debate climate looks today, that comes with a lot of hate, and yeah, that's just something that I had unfortunately had expected, that if you put yourself out there, then you will receive lots of hate, especially since the climate crisis is something that people are so desperate not to talk about that they are willing to cross almost all limits in order to silence people who speak up on this.
So you don't suffer from that, from all that hate and all these reactions?
I mean, no, of course not. It's just, you have to see it as some kind of proof that you are doing something right.
Okay, can you also imagine yourself in the role of a politician one day?
I have no idea. I'm just thinking about what to do now. It's hard because I can't even plan the next week, because then something comes up. But so I don't know. We'll see. But there are so many things that I want to do.
For example?
Everything.
Then thank you very much for your time, Greta.
Thank you too.